Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sideboard Files here on HEDRON.TV. Manuel, your host as usual, and this time I'm joined by Aleks Dakic.
Thanks for inviting me, Manuel.
Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for joining. Right, so we talk about Modern again. The deck of choice this time is Red-Green TitanShift. We're going to have a close look to your sideboard configuration and the sideboard plans versus two specific matchups, Death Shadow, all the different variants, and also Jund Midrange. But first, as usual in this show, a quick look to the main deck configuration. Right, so what's the plan of this deck and what are the key cards of the deck?
So, as you already said, TitanShift is a green-red deck. So it's basically a Gruul combo deck, which builds around the card Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, which activates itself when you put the 6 mountain on the battlefield. So it does 3 damage to either your opponent or a creature of your choice. So what it tries to do is tries to assemble the combo by ramping up with ramp spells like Search for Tomorrow, Farseek, and Sacred Tribe Elder to combo as early as in turn 4 or 5 the latest, with cards like Scapeshift and Primeval Titan, which are your main combo pieces.
Okay, so you have the ramp spells, Search for Tomorrow, Farseek, that help you to develop the mana, and then you can play your key cards, Primeval Titan, Scapeshift, get Valakut into play, lots of damage, lots of triggers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lots of triggers, and yeah, pretty linear strategy. This is what you want to do with this deck.
Exactly, yes.
Speaking about damage, I see that you have Lightning Bolts in your list. Lightning Bolts, this is actually under debate when we're talking about Red-Green TitanShift. There are players who are like, I don't like Lightning Bolts anymore, I want to cut them. Other players instead that want to keep the Lightning Bolts. And you seem to be one of those who wants to keep them. So can you tell me why?
Yeah, in the end, I would like to keep them because I think personally they are not as bad as people think they are. They're still useful against many matchups, especially 50-50 matchups like Apps and Company, where you need the immediate interaction to clear the path of threats like the Voodoo Druid, basically, which can lose you the game very quickly. So we need the immediate interaction, which Lightning Bolt gives us.
Okay, so interacting very fast. So they have like this big threat ready to combo, you just destroy it. And I mean, Countess Company, we're talking about a deck that is still quite popular, so
definitely
makes perfect sense.
You can still run into these decks, kind of decks.
Okay.
Elves, Affinity, these decks are still around, even though Grixis Shadow is kind of the top tier deck, which holds them kind of back. But they're still there, definitely.
Yeah, okay, so wide open field, a lot of aggro decks, so you need to defend yourself.
It's still modern after all, so yeah.
Yeah, it's still modern after all. I totally agree with you. Okay, so let's talk about the flexi slots now, because you have a few. I say you have like the Relics or Progenitors.
Exactly, yes.
So yeah, let's talk about these first.
So yeah, Relic or Progenitors, we have 3 copies of them in the main board. Right now, normally they're in the sideboard, but right now we have them in the main board because I think they're a pretty good meta call right now because the field is, as I said, pested with Grixis Shadow and also Living End, which Relic Progenitor is also fairly good against. And also it keeps the graveyard a bit clean of decks like Dredge or generally decks which abuse the graveyard.
Okay, so delve mechanics, that kind of stuff.
Definitely,
it's all in check because you just shrink the graveyard.
So that's a very big plus because it keeps the delve threats away, such as Tazigor or Gomek Angler. And also it's fairly good against mid-range decks such as Absa Midrange or Jund Midrange because it pretty much shrinks their goyfs and also denies them Delirium when they want to fetch Death Shadow or any other creature. So that's a big plus there. That's why I think it's a great inclusion in the main board right now.
Okay.
And also it has a cycling effect, such as other cards in the main board. Which
very true. Very true. Oh, let's talk about these other cycling cards. I mean, yeah, because Relic or Progenitors, you can sacrifice it and exile all the graveyards and draw 1 card.
Exactly,
But
yes.
yeah, I understand the analogy. And yeah, you do have other cards with cycling that are part of your flexi slots. I mean, let's talk about those.
So a pretty sweet conclusion in this deck right now in the main board is are 2 copies, or some people play only 1 copy, but they're there. It's the land card Sheltered Thicket. So it's pretty much just a mountain, a dual land actually, which can be fetched, which is a plus. But also additional to that, it can be cycled, which is often very useful because sometimes you need your win condition, you need a certain card, your interaction, and then you got the Shadow Thicket, and you have enough mountains, you just cycle it away, and hopefully find your solution you're looking for.
So it's a mountain. It means that can trigger Valakut.
Exactly, yes.
That's sweet.
And a forest.
And the forest as well. Yeah, true. That's pretty sweet. Okay.
And the fact that it does come into play tapped is often very relevant, so it's not that terrible. I think the cycling effect is way too strong.
Okay, so when you do an overall evaluation, it's definitely worth having this card in the list.
Absolutely, definitely.
Hmm?
And talking about cycling effect, we also have the card Sweathering Suns, which is an anger-like card. It does 3 damage to all creatures on the battlefield, just without the effect, just without the anger, the exile effect anger has to offer.
Okay.
Which is also not that terrible because Dredge is still a fairly good matchup again for us. So we don't need the exile effect right now. We still have one in the sideboard we're going to talk about later. But yeah, so Sweathering Suns is a very good card because it can be cycled, like Shadow Thicket. So in case you're fighting against blue-white control, for example, you draw into Sweathering Suns. It's not that frustrating, like when drawing into an Anger of the Gods, you can just cycle it away and find your Ramspell.
Okay, you're stuck with a dead card in your hand.
Exactly, yes. So it's not that dead anymore. It's never dead, actually. So I think that's a fairly good inclusion right now, as a one-off or even two-off. But right now, I'll keep it as a one-off.
Okay, for you, one-off is okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Next, we have engineered explosives, I believe.
Yes. So engineered explosives are universally useful. They not only deal with creatures, they can also deal with enchantments, artifacts around the 2 mana cost, 1 mana cost. Also with tokens. So if you're facing against white black, Lingering Souls tokens, you just destroy them off with engineered explosives.
Sure.
And also, fun fact, which can occur sometimes, is when your opponent is using Spreading Seas on you or Seas Claim, you can actually Sunburst engineer explosives for free, which was actually very useful against the blue-white control at the PBTQ last Saturday. So he used Spreading Seas on my Cinderglade.
Okay, so your opponent was on white-blue control.
Exactly, yes.
You were playing there at the PPTQ, and this happened for real.
This happened for real. So he
okay.
So he played naturally a Spreading Seas on my dual land, and then turn later played Geist of Saint Traft. Normally you don't have any answers to a Geist.
Okay, so Geist means death.
Exactly. And I had the one-off engineered, which was helpful, but it was quite helpful because then I could Sunburst for free, and that was not expecting.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Unexpected, definitely surprising. Yeah. So that can happen.
Yeah, that can happen. I mean, we're talking about somehow a rare or extreme situation, but yeah, why not? We know that can happen.
Definitely.
Okay, so anything else we would like to add here?
Yes, also there is a very sweet Planeswalker in this main deck configuration right now, which is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Came out of Kaladesh a few months ago. And it's just in general a great utility card. You can call it a value machine, basically. So what it does, it can be used as a removal spell. It does 4 damage to any creature you would like. And it also can just cheat your Primeval Titan to the battlefield, cheating your Primeval Titan earlier than normally.
Sure, because the ability allows you to add 2 more mana to your mana pool. So
exactly, yes. Especially when you're missing your 6th land. So that's very helpful, definitely. And also it has a pretty solid plus ability where you can just exile the top card of the library. And if you don't want to play it, if you can't play it, it deals 2 damage to an opponent. But you can find your Scape Shift, find any card you might want to play, you might want to find in the next turn. So I think that's a very solid card right now. That's why we include a free off in the main board.
Yeah, I totally understand it. I mean, it fits perfectly the strategy of the deck, this card. It does everything you want to do with this deck. Helps you with the mana and helps you, let's say, digging or looking for key cards. I mean, really powerful machine. I mean, value machine.
Yeah,
we should say.
It's a win condition on its own. It also it's fairly good against Blood Moon decks. So if they play Blood Moon before post board, you have the Chandra as a way to still win the game.
Okay, so represents also another win condition
Definitely.
in certain matchups.
Exactly, yes.
Right, so I think we said it all for the main deck configuration. We can start talking about the sideboard, the main thing of our show. So here we go, 3 Obstinate Baloth, 2 Chameleon Colossus, 2 Roast, 2 Beast Within, 1 Angers of the Gods, 1 Primal Command, 2 Nature's Claim, 1 Reclamation Sage, and 1 Tireless Tracker. So this sideboard, generally speaking, is it a sideboard that is like configured to help you in the very bad matchups? Is it a sideboard that is instead configured to face a wide field, open field? Or is it a sideboard that it's somehow tuned for a specific meta game? What is it?
So it's kind of all the things together. So you still see the cards you normally see in a sideboard of TitanShift. You still see cards like Obstinate Baloth, Anger of the Gods, and Enchantment and Artifact Hate, for example, Nature's Claim or Reclamation Sage. But also this sideboard is specially configured, tuned for the Grixis Shadow matchup, or in general the Shadow matchup. So we are using a few slots to dedicate ourselves to this matchup, to have interaction, to have answers for this matchup, because this matchup is not that good. Well, with this setup, it's way better than before, but yes. And also a big plus on these cards right now are they're also useful against other matchups as well. Not only Grixis Shadow, but also good against other matchups.
So you have like 2, 4, 6, 7 slots that can help you against the Shadow decks, but they are not just totally for that Shadow. It's not like you're sacrificing half of your sideboard just for one match.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, that's really cool actually, because it can help you in different situations. Chameleon Colossus. I mean, this card has somehow risen in popularity, and I can understand why, because it can become quite big also with all the mana that you generate with this kind of deck TitanShift. Is it a card that you use only against Death Shadow, or is it a card that you can also use against other decks?
We can also use this card against generally decks which are mainly focusing on the black color. For example, mid-range decks like Absalom Midrange and Jund Midrange. We can still use this card against it, because especially if Absalom Midrange boards out their paths, because that's pretty much the only answer to this card, and also Tarmogoyf. But this thing is most of the times bigger than the Tarmogoyf, so they can only use it as a jump blocker. But they can also double Lightning Bolt the card, but I think Jund's not going to keep any Lightning Bolts in the main board after sideboarding. So it's a pretty good card against these decks as well.
Totally understand. So when it comes maybe even turn 4, it's already 4/4 for 4, which is a pretty good deal. But as soon as you can untap again, it becomes really big.
Yeah, the protection from black is very essential.
Yeah, and also that's a very important part. Yeah, protection from black really plays an important role.
And against Death Shadow, it's actually, I think, a 1-turn clock actually, because they tend to go down to 8 life points at this point, and then you just have to untap with Chameleon Costs on the board.
Okay, you swing once, and if they have no blockers, you win the game.
It's over on the spot, off the spot. Exactly. Okay. That's how much strong it is. That's why we're including 2 copies now.
Okay, makes perfect sense.
From 0 to 1 and from 1 to 2 now.
From 1 to 2, okay, that was the evolution.
Because why we are losing this matchup mainly is usually because we're not finding any win conditions. And this gives us another win condition, a second good win condition, in case Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, or Primeval Titan or Scapeshot gets lost legacied or gets surgical extractioned by a Thought Scar or something. We still have this card in the package.
Okay, so one more win condition actually in your roster of options. That's also pretty good. Yeah. Roast. Sorcery, but still getting more and more popular. Is it because of the cheap mana cost? Is it because of the 5 damages that it deals to a creature without flying? I guess this is a quite good ratio. Just 2 mana, 5 damages, go away, creature, whatever threat is bothering you.
So it's pretty much the 5 damage. I mean, it's not the typical card you see in the sideboard, but the 5 damage is very good, because it deals with pretty much everything creature-wise that the field has to offer. all the Eldrazi's get shut down by this card. All the Delph threats, Gomag Angler, Tasigur get shut down by this threat. Sometimes a Death Shadow, even a Death Shadow. And it's just a great card right now. A great answer to many cards. Even Tarmogoyf. All the mid-range creatures.
Okay, so let's talk about a staple of the TitanShift sideboard. We talked about Obstinate Battle. This is a card that has been in the sideboard for quite some time, and it's interesting because it enables quite some, a few nice plays that you can do.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Yes.
so why 3 copies? Why is there in 3 copies? Because 3 copies are a lot. So you really want to see it in the very early turns, and you want to draw maybe even more than 1.
So I think when we use 3 copies, we need 3 copies simply because of the burn matchup. Burn matchup is pretty much a race, and we need the life gain we get from the Obstinate Battle. So this is the main reason we are including 3 of. And as you mentioned, it has a very nice synergy against this card. For example, through cards like Liliana of the Veil and Kolaghan's Command, which is pretty sweet, which can happen. And what you can do is you can, in response of the Chainer's Edict effect from Liliana, you can just use some respect and tutor for Obstinate Battle and discard that. Then comes to the battlefield.
Oh yeah, that's a nice interaction. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, what also something funny happened a while ago was against Eldrazi. So I had a roast in the main board, after sideboarding, of course, and I used to roast against Reality Smasher. So Reality Smasher ability triggered, and I had to discard a card. And
wow, that's a nice one.
You can already imagine what happened.
Yeah. It's like kill your creature, and then I have a 4/4 on the battlefield, and I gain 4 life. How about that
Not so bad
for a
anymore.
turn?
Exactly, yes, that can happen.
Yeah, nice, very nice. Okay, Beast Within.
So this is a very interesting card. It's very good tempo card, which gains you a bit of time, and also is a very good answer against pretty much every permanent to noise you. You can target even lands with Beast Within, especially in the mirror. So that's a very good thing that can happen.
Oh, so this is a good answer in the mirror.
Exactly.
So mana screw your opponent and combo faster than them.
Definitely. Or what you can also do with this card is target yourself, a land of yours or anything, to either get a charm blocker against Death Shadow, or any other creature, or you can, in response, if for example your opponent is playing Crumble Dust on your Valakut, you can, in response, it's definitely, I think, a play worth it to do. You can, in response, target your own Valakut with Beast Within to save it from the crumble effect.
Okay, so you let's say you sacrifice the Valakut that you have on the battlefield, but you save the others, so your combo is not totally disrupted.
Pretty much that.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Totally understand.
And it's also a very good answer against Blood Moon, definitely, because it also deals with enchantments, artifacts, lands. Pretty much deals with everything.
Yeah, it has no restriction, so
exactly
very versatile.
And the free body your opponent gets from Beast Within is also not so relevant, because one Valakut trigger completely deals with it. So
yeah, sure.
That's totally fine.
Sure. Okay, so I understand totally the inclusion in the sideboard. Anger of the Gods. It's pretty clear, self-explanatory. The only question I would like to ask is, why only 1?
So why only 1 copy? We already have a pretty good matchup against Dredge, but we already have so many interactive spells in the main board and sideboard that I think an inclusion of just 1 anger is enough, in my opinion.
Okay, so you don't need more than 1. This is the kind of situation you expect when you go to a tournament. You know that 1 is going to be enough because you already have 1 Sweathered Sun, and you expect, of course, aggro decks, but you expect more more of the other stuff. Okay. All right, yeah, makes perfect sense. Primal Command helps you with many different effects. Is it versatile? Is it for several different matchups or just for Death Shadow?
So this one I like very much. It's one of my favorite cards, actually, right now. It's very flexible. It gains you life, which is very useful against burn. And it also can gain life for your opponent. In case of Death Shadow, you can let your opponent gain to 7 life, and then hopefully his Death Shadow dies.
Or becomes very small, one of the two. Okay.
Exactly. Or becomes weaker. Yes, that can happen. And as I said, it's very flexible. You can pretty much get rid of any non-creature permanent on the battlefield. A Blood Moon, pretty much everything. And except creatures, of course. But that's okay. That's okay. That we can accept. And also, what is pretty good with this card is you can actually tutor a Reclamation Sage, for example, a Primeval Titan, even the Chameleon Colossus, if you need them. So that's a very versatile card, which can be used in many matchups. I very often sideboard it in against many matchups, so it's never really that card. Never really a card you don't want to see.
Okay, pretty good. So, Nature's Claim, another card that is pretty self-explanatory. What I'd like to ask you is, I've seen some lists that run the Ancient Grudge, and it's always this little debate about having a split, one Ancient Grudge, one Nature's Claim, or having only Ancient Grudge, or having 2 Nature's Claim, like in your case. This is your preference, and I'd like to know why.
So I would say having Ancient Grudge in the sideboard is definitely nothing wrong about it, but I personally prefer the Nature's Claim right now. It's a very cheap removal, enchantments and artifacts, and I'm not that much scared of Affinity right now because we all already, as mentioned, have so much interaction in our main board and sideboard that, in my opinion, we don't need the Ancient Grudge effect. And also Lantern is got quite unpopular, so I think an Nature's Claim is a safe bet right now. I think we don't need the Ancient Grudge right now. But in case Affinity gets stronger and stronger, which can happen, we can always put in an Ancient Grudge in the sideboard.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the sideboard plans and the sideboard configuration is... These kind of things are not eternal. I mean, you constantly adapt to the flow of the game. But in this very moment, you think that this is the right way to go.
Definitely.
Because you will have, every now and then, some Lantern control players popping by, that's for sure. But probably the percentage they represent on the field, it's small enough. And you can say, okay, I would rather concentrate on the kind of threats that I am actually most likely to face. So I totally understand your point. Reclamation Sage, can be tutored.
Exactly.
Summon Pact.
That's the sole reason we're playing it.
That's the main reason, okay. Artifact and enchantment, so pretty self-explanatory here. And last but not least, 1 copy of Tireless Tracker. Tireless Tracker, quite interesting creature because at the beginning, so playing Standard, and then it got popular. I mean, it's also played in Legacy. And,
it is?
Yeah, it is, because we open like a very small Legacy bracket here, but combo decks like Red-Green Lands play this in the sideboard, and they play it like in game 2, because this threat, if it's unanswered, becomes really big really quick. And I guess this is the same reason why you have it here in your sideboard.
Exactly. It has a similar effect to Chameleon Colossus. It can get out of hand very quickly if unanswered. And it can snowball and grow so big if it gets untouched. And also, it generates a lot of value for us in the form of clue tokens, which we are generating when playing a land. So it's kind of a landfall trigger. And we can sacrifice these to just draw a card. So that's a very versatile threat, I would say. So it's definitely found its way home, found its way in the sideboard as a permanent inclusion.
Yeah, synergizes perfectly with the deck. I mean, you look for lands and you get the clues, then you sacrifice the clues, you draw cards, get some value, becomes bigger. Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
It's just TitanShift is the Tireless Tracker's home. We can say
pretty much.
At least what we're talking about in Modern. I think we said it all for the sideboard, so we can start talking about the specific matchups that we have for this episode. And the first matchup I would like to talk about is Red-Green TitanShift versus Death Shadow. We're talking about Grixis, but also about the other variants. I mean, your sideboard plan, as far as I understood, is the same. Doesn't really matter what kind of Death Shadow deck you're facing.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so let's start with the objectives that you have in Game 2. What are your objectives when you're facing Death Shadow?
So our main objective against this matchup is just try to, I guess, survive the storm of big baddies in form of Death Shadow and Tazigor.
Okay, contain their assault.
Exactly, yeah. Try to keep the board cleared of these creatures, interact with these, and try to find our win conditions as soon as possible.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, very good. So, try to find the weak conditions, buying time, dealing with the threats. More or less, this is what we are talking about. Okay, so let's assume now that you won game 1 because for some reason you were fast enough against the Death Shadow deck. So in game 2, you're going to be on the draw. What do you side out and what do you side in this matchup?
So what we are siding out against this matchup is our 3 copies of Chandra, Torch of Defiance, 3 copies of Lightning Bolt, and 1 copy of Sweltering Suns. So the Chandras aren't doing much in this matchup because, the health bar is around 5, all these creatures, so Chandra doesn't do much against these. So she can't act as a removal. And we don't want to deal damage to our Death Shadow opponent because she has a plus ability, as I said once, that can deal damage to 2 damage to our opponent.
Yeah, but you helping them out.
Yeah, exactly.
This way,
don't want to do that yet. So we are boarding her out. And Lightning Bolts are also pretty much dead cards. We do want to have other kinds of interaction in this matchup. And Lightning Bolts just don't target anything in this matchup. I mean, we could target our opponent, but that's a very rare case.
But they're also aware of it, so they will not fall under the Lightning Bolt range.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And the Sweltering Suns, I mean, you can cycle it away, but the 3 damage just doesn't do anything in this matchup, so it's a very easy card to sideboard out.
Okay, so what comes in?
So what comes in are 2 copies of Roast, 2 copies of Chameleon Colossi. I don't know how it's called again. Exactly.
Chameleon Colossi, I think is correct, but 2 copies of Chameleon Colossi.
All right.
So goes.
1 copy of Primal Command, 1 copy of Titus Tracker, and 1 copy of Obstinate Baloth. So why the 1 copy of Obstinate Baloth is, I mean, they could be running Liliana, but they're usually not. But it's a pretty sweet card against Kolaghan's Command. They're still using Kolaghan's Command, so it's a pretty safe card against this card, definitely. And the Roast, just in general, a great tool to remove the Delph threats, to keep the Delph threats away from the field, because it deals 5 damage and they all have 5 toughness.
Talking about Tazigor, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It sometimes also kills the Death Shadow. Not always, but sometimes, and that's enough, definitely enough. So it's also what's good about this card is it can be easily swapped with Lightning Bolt. And the Chameleon Colossus. Oh, this one is my favorite by now. It's a very good second win condition. If your Valakut or Scapeshift or Primeval Titan gets surgical away, which can happen because they're running surgical extraction in the sideboard. So it's a great second win condition. And also it's even a 1-turn clock, because they tend to go down to 8 life points.
Yeah, very low in life. Yeah.
To have a 5/5 Death Shadow. And just as soon as you untap and it loses Summoning Sickness, you can attack, pump it to an 8/8, and win a game off the spot. Because they don't have any answers to this card.
Okay, so if this card touches the battlefield, they are in trouble.
Yeah, they have 1 turn, maybe 1 turn or 2 turns time to finish you off. So it's a great win condition against this deck.
Okay.
We do also have the Primal Command, which is very flexible in this matchup. We can either, as mentioned, gain your opponent 7 life, which I think often kills off the Death Shadow completely.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use it as a tutor for Chameleon Colossus, Obstinate Baloth if you want. But mainly Primeval Titan and Chameleon Colossus.
Okay, so those will be the main 2 targets for this card.
Definitely. Okay. We're trying to get these as soon as possible on the battlefield.
Yes.
Because they are winning us the game, definitely.
Yes, because one of the objectives is somehow try to find your weak conditions soon enough, so you want to be able to close the game in a quite fast fashion, because they can be very deadly with Death Shadows.
Definitely.
So you want to be fast.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Titus Tracker's just a solid threat, great threat, because it can grow. It can actually grow as big as a Death Shadow It can be used as a jump blocker. It gains value by clues, which can use to dig through your deck to find your Chameleon Colossus or Primeval Titan or mountains to get triggers of Valakut, because that's also a way you can win the game just by triggering Valakut, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Because they tend to go that low on life points.
Okay.
So Tiles Tracker is a pretty safe threat, definitely, in this matchup.
Right, okay. So the plans are the same on the draw and on the play?
They are the same, no matter if you're on the draw or on the play.
Okay, so I'm not even going to ask that question. So if you lost the game in game 2, going to be on the play, you do exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same thing, yes.
Okay, very good. So we can just switch to the next matchup that we want to discuss. Jund Midrange. That's the deck we want to talk about.
Jund Midrange, so the regular Jund.
Okay, the regular Jund. Quite a staple in Modern, I mean, quite a classic in Modern.
Yes, it kind of got shrink down like a Goyf, because Jund Shadow is most of the times, of course, Grixis Shadow, but if you're playing Jund, most of the times it's Jund Death Shadow.
Okay.
But Jund can still be faced. It's still a deck to be reckoned with. And we have a similar sideboard plan against this deck.
All right, so let's start with the objectives. I mean, you're facing Jund Midrange. Game 2, what are your objectives?
So our objectives are quite different in this matchup. We are trying to control the game, control the board state definitely, by having a lot of interaction, and just try to slowly play our combo.
Okay, when you say slowly, you mean that you're somehow doing a slightly grandier game?
Exactly. We have a bit more time because they don't have big finishers like Death Shadow, so we have a bit more time, not so much pressure on us. We can kind of take this slower roll in this one.
Sideboard plans. Same on the play, on the draw? Just to
Same on the play, on the draw, yes.
Just to make things easier. Okay. So, game 2, what do you side out and what do you side in?
So what we board out in this matchup are 3 copies of Lightning Bolt, 2 copies of Sideboard, actually, 1 copies of Sweathering Suns, and 3 copies of Farseek. All the Farseek's gone.
So quite some cards. I mean, we're talking about a large number of cards here.
A few cards, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So why are we cutting the win condition in form of Sideboard and Farseek? So, in my opinion, TitanShift players should not be afraid of sometimes cutting a few of the win conditions and RAM spells, especially against aggressive decks, because we need a few more win conditions in this one. Because if the Sideboard gets Surgical Extraction, we don't have that many not many win conditions left. That's why we are trying to get more win conditions and more answers to the battlefield.
Okay, so the idea is somehow not necessarily quantity, but diversifying the win conditions.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, playing around Surgical Extraction, as you said before. Okay.
And the same rule on Lightning Bolt, it just doesn't target anything in this matchup. So that's why it's an easy swap with Roast. And the Suns, same thing, 3 damage, doesn't kill anything.
Okay. Doesn't do the job.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
Okay, and what do you side in?
So what we're siding in are 2 copies of Roast, 2 copies of Chameleon Colossus, this time 3 copies of Obstinate Baloth, 1 copy of Primal Command, and last but not least, 1 copy of Titan's Tracker. So this time we are including 3 copies of Baloth, because we know they have Call Against Command, we know they have Thoughtseize, we know that they have Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, plenty of discard, spells, and effect.
So this card is going to be playing a very big role in this one. So we have the option, often the option to discard the Baloth. So Baloth is also very good, just threat in general. It blocks the creatures, which are mainly the threats in this matchup, creatures. So it's a great blocker. It's just a solid threat overall. It protects us against discard. So it's definitely a safe pick there. We have the 2 copies of Roast, once again, because 5 damage does destroy almost everything in this matchup.
Okay.
And then we have 1 copy of Titan's Tracker, which is same as Baloth, just a very good threat in this matchup. It gains us value via clue tokens. It's a great blocker. It's just a great threat in general. It kind of plays around Blood Moon. It could be seen as a win condition as well.
Okay.
So
yeah, because it can grow pretty fast if an
definitely, definitely, because they tend to board out removal, fatal pushes, even sometimes terminates. But yeah, if they don't find any removal, Tidus Tracker is just a force that can't be stopped, pretty much.
Okay.
And then we have the Primal Command. Very flexible card in this matchup. It can gain us some time by gaining us 7 life. It can tutor us Chameleon Colossus, Obstinate Balor, a Tidus Tracker, a Sacred Tribe Elder if we want to use our combo Scape Shift. And of course, our best card, one of our best cards, Primeval Titan. So it's a very versatile card. It can get rid of Blood Moon as well. And just also shrink the Goyfs by just shuffling back the graveyard into the deck. So it's a very versatile card in this one. I really like this one. And last but not least, we have 2 copies of Chameleon Colossus. So this card functions similar in the Grixis Shadow matchup. Your opponent doesn't have many answers against this card, except the only thing you have your Colossus has to fear about, has to be scared of, are discards. Discards and maybe a Tarmogoyf, but not really much. Not really, because Tarmogoyf is never going to be bigger than a 7/8. So Chameleon Colossus is definitely going to go through. And also all the removals can't hit Chameleon Colossus. So it's a great second win condition. Or let me say third win condition, because we also have the Tidus Tracker in the board. So we have a bunch of win conditions in case of Surgical Extraction, Fulminator Mage, and stuff like these.
Okay, very good. So the only thing I was thinking about is when you face in this kind of decks, I mean, Jund Midrange, the Liliana of the Veil and the Edict effect, you have to be careful when you play the creatures and stuff like that, because,
definitely,
protection from black, but that doesn't help you against the second ability of Liliana. So it's important to know that out, actually. Maybe sticking a Chameleon Colossus right there on turn 4 without another creature can sometimes not be the best play.
That's very
good. You need to understand a bit how it goes, how the game is going to actually make the right decision. But yeah, generally speaking, of course, we're talking about a threat that has to be answered very quickly, otherwise it's game for you. And that's what you want to do, of course.
That's also a good reason to play as many creatures as possible. 3 copies of Obstinate Balor, Tidus Tracker, and just to have many sec outlets to protect our Primeval Titan or Chameleon Colossus.
Yeah, and the ability actually to stick more threats to the battlefield. So there's not only one creature, but more than one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I would say that's it for this episode. So thank you very much, Alex, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Manuel. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And it was a pleasure. You are coming back, definitely.
Definitely.
And a big thank you to all of you who've been watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, because we surely did making it. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, or reach us on Twitter and Facebook, facebook.com/HEDRON.TV, twitter.com/HEDRON.TV. And of course, stay tuned on HEDRON.TV for more content to come. And for now, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.